Here's an example of matrix vector multiplication. The first example that we'll look at is the vector 2, 1, and the matrix 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now this first vector, we have one row and two columns, so it's a 1 by 2 vector. And the matrix, we have 2 rows and 3 columns, so it's a 2 by 3 matrix. Now, as long as these inner dimensions match, then we'll get an answer. And our answer here, we can sort of think of it like crossing out those inner dimensions, and we should get a 1 by 3 vector. All right. Okay, so let's get started. What we might even do is we will use red for our vector and we'll use green for our matrix, just so we can see exactly what's going on as we go. So as we worked out, we'll get a 1 by 3 vector, which means 1 row and 3 columns. I'm going to open up that bracket there, but I won't close it, and we may end up accidentally going over a couple of lines as we do this. So actually, we'll do it on the next line. Now, the first element in our vector will have to be the first row here by the first column. Okay. That means we have 2 times 1 plus 1 times 4. The second element in our vector will have to be the first row multiplied by the second column. When we do that, we get 2 times 2 plus 1 times 5. The third element in our vector will have to be the first row multiplied by the third column. That's 2 times 3 plus 1 times 6. And we'll close our brackets there. So let's do all of our multiplications. 2 times 1 is 2, plus 1 times 4, which is 4. 2 times 2 is 4, plus 1 times 5, which is 5. 2 times 3 is 6, plus 1 times 6 is 6. 8, whoops, not 2 plus 4 is definitely not 8. We have 6, 4 plus 5 is 9, and 6 plus 6 is 12. We can close our brackets, and that is the first matrix vector multiplication done. Now, a good or important thing to remember is that if you're doing matrix vector multiplication, if the vector is on the left, like it was above, our vector needs to be a row vector. If the vector is on the right, then it needs to be a column vector. So let's have a look at what it would look like in this case if we used the same matrix, but instead multiplied by a column vector. Now, that matrix was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. To be able to multiply by a column vector, we need to make sure those inner dimensions match. As we spoke about before, we have 2 rows and 3 columns, so we have a 2 by 3 matrix. That means that the inner dimension to match is this 3. So our vector must actually be a 3 by 1 vector. Our 3 by 1 vector, let's use something nice and easy, 1, 0, 1. That has 3 rows and 1 column, so it's 3 by 1. And those inner dimensions match, which means we'll sort of cancel them out and we end up with a 2 by 1 vector in the end. Okay, so here will be our 2. our 2 by 1 vector. That's 2 rows, 1 column. For the first element, and here we will do, like above, we had our vector in red, our matrix in green, so we'll keep that going. Our matrix will be in green, and our vector will be in red. So for this first element in our new vector, we're going to be multiplying this first row by this first column. We have 1 times 1 plus 2 times 0 plus 3 times 1. In the second element of our vector, which is in the second row, first column, we're going to multiply the second row by the first column. That means we're 4 by 1 plus 5 by 0 plus 6 by 1. Okay, so that's what we're doing there. It's always important to remember too that you always multiply row by column, row by column. 1 times 1 is 1, plus 0 plus 3. 4 times 1 is 4, plus 5 times 0 is 0, plus 6 times 1 is 6. So we end up with the vector 4, 10. So in this video you've seen how to multiply matrices by vectors. You've seen it doing a vector by a matrix first, and you've also seen a matrix by a vector second. And you can see also that we had to use either a row vector or a column vector depending on whether we had it on the left or the right of the matrix.